Today we're going to talk about histograms and frequency tables. Some vocabulary to go over. If you have a frequency table, it shows the number of pieces of data that will fall within a given interval. The scale allows you to record all of the data, including the least value and the greatest value. The interval is separates the scale into equal parts. So let's talk about how to make a frequency table. So a frequency table with categories. So for example, if Kaylee asks her classmates about their favorite type of music, the results are shown in the table. Make a frequency table of the data. Then determine the favorite and least favorite type of music. Okay, so here you have a table with 3 columns. So you have 4 columns. You have the type of music, rock, jazz, country, top 40, rap. And then you want to tally as you see each of the letters. And then frequency is how many tallies you have. So each of the letters, I just defined them. Rock is R, J is jazz, C is country, top 40 is F, rap is P. So I'm going to go and count all my R's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I'm going to have 5 tallies. Remember, when you write tallies, you draw 4 of them, and then the 5th one you make a slash, go all the way through. So I have 5 tallies. Cumulative frequency is how many total you have. So right now we only have 5. Now let's talk about jazz. So you go through, look at your chart. I have 2 J's. So I'm going to have 2 tallies. That's a frequency of 2. Now my cumulative frequency, I have these 5 tallies and these 2 tallies. So I had a total of 7 tallies. So it's what you have accumulated so far to this point. Country, so go through and look at all your countries. So I have 1 country and 2 countries. So frequency of 2. Now I had a total of 7. I just added 2 more. So now my cumulative frequency is 9. Top 40, which is represented with an F. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when I come over here, so there's 5. Then you tack on 3 more to get 8. My cumulative frequency is 9 plus 8, which is 17. It's how much total frequency you have up until this point. Looking at rap, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 17 plus 8 is 25. So the 2 favorite types were top 40 and rap, with a total of 8 tallies each. And the least favorite was jazz and country with 2 tallies. So let's go to the next page and talk about frequency tables with scores or intervals. With intervals of numbers instead of categories, so winning Super Bowl scores from 1983 to 2002 are listed below. Make a frequency table of the data. Choose an appropriate interval and scale for the data. The scale should include the least value, which in our case is 20, and the greatest value, which is 55. So your scale needs to reach from 20 to 55. How many numbers are in here? So there's a total of 36 numbers in here. So there's a difference of 35 numbers in here. So when looking at it, you want to equal it out. You want to put it into equal parts. Sometimes the scale is already set up for you. So if you look at the table below, the interval is 20 to 28 here. So that has a scale of 9. So the category of 20 to 28 has an interval of 9 because there are 9 pieces within this interval. And I'm having this, I have 4 rows, so let's just bump this up to 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9. There's no real wrong way to make your interval as long as your categories are large enough to spread out the data, but not small enough to where everything's in 1 or 2 intervals. You should have 4 or 5 columns. So in our table, let's finish this up. So we have 5, 6 numbers within the interval 20 to 28. And then the next interval will start at 29. And remember, there's 9 numbers in there, so that's going to go to 37. And then the next interval is 38 to 46. And then the following is 47 to 55. If I go up to my winning scores and count how many numbers are between 29 and 37, I should get 6, which matches my frequency, making a total cumulative frequency of 12. It shows me in the next category I have 5 numbers, which makes my cumulative frequency 17. It tells me here I have 3 numbers, so I have 3 tallies, making a total cumulative frequency of 20. Pause the video and see if you can fill in this chart here. Check your answers with the problems below. Ask your teacher if you have any questions with it. Now let's move on to making the histogram. So the number of wins for the 29 teams of the NBA for 2000 to 2001 season has been organized into frequency table. Make a histogram of the data. So step 1, you need to draw and label the horizontal and vertical axis. Add a scale. Then step 2, draw a bar to represent the frequency of each interval. Remember, this is a histogram, so the bars are going to touch. So for example, here, it already gives you the interval. So this would be 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and so on and so forth. And then you want to go up with a scale that has to reach up to 10. So I'm going to go up by 2s. As you go in to fill your intervals, the category 11 to 20 has 3, so that's going to be between the 2 and the 4. And you notice how I wrote at the top of each of my bars the number, the frequency that this bar was at. That's good for your teacher and it's good for you. So now pause the video. And I want you to create your own histogram. Don't forget to label your X and your Y axis. You've already got the terms right here that you need to label it. Label your title. Make sure it matches what your frequency table is about. Check your answers with the following problem. If you need to use different colors to help you, that is perfectly fine. Again, make sure you label the top of your bars as well, so you know what it is, your teacher knows what it is, and there's no confusion. A few things that you'll need to know before we move forward with more constructing. If you turn to page 22 in your notes, so at the top it should have these two pictures and it should say interpreting graphs. Some of the vocab on this page, such as the independent variable. Remember, independent is your x values and your dependent are your y values. So as we continue going on, turning to the next page where it says frequency distribution, and it talks about the number of pairs of sneakers. We're not going to do this activity right now. However, if you turn to the next page, because they both are involved with the same data. So for instance, you can take this line plot and apply it to the previous page with the number of pairs of sneakers. Below, it talks about, has two questions. What information do we have in the line plot that we do not have in a histogram? So if this is your line plot, what information can we seek from here that in the previous page in our histogram we would not be able to get? So the answer to that is in the line plot, you can see exactly how many people, have exact their pairs. Whereas in the histogram, you don't know that exact amount because you have categories. So what information do we have in the line plot that we do not have in the histogram? We have exactly how many people have pairs of sneakers, and in what are some situations that a line plot might be better than a histogram. An example of that would be, again, when you want to figure out how many people have 13 pairs of shoes. Okay, or use a histogram when you just need to have a category or an estimation of sneakers. Let's look at the stem and leaf plot. So if you can turn the page one more time. So this stem and leaf plot talks about the ages of teachers at Fairfield Middle School. So the first thing that you have to do to create your histogram is you're going to need categories or intervals. So there are, let's count the total number of numbers first. Actually, let's just keep this simple. You have your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So our intervals, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and 60 to 69. So there's your intervals. Okay, you have to go make those at the bottom here. Okay, and then on the side is going to be your frequency. The highest frequency is going to be 9, so we can go up by 2s and just make it go up to 10. Now turn a couple pages, let's talk about circle graphs. In this first example, it talks about movie pet peeves. So a group of 100 students were surveyed about their movie-going experience pet peeves. The table to the left shows their responses. Use this table to answer the questions below. This is question 1. What percentage of students surveyed said that the overpriced food was their biggest pet peeve? So I go to overpriced food, and there's 12 students out of 100 students. 12 out of 100 is 12%. Question 2. What fraction of students said the biggest pet peeve was the pre-show commercials? That was 24 students out of 100. To get your fraction, you want to make sure you always reduce this. They both are divisible by 4 to give you 6 over 25. If you do not simplify, it will be wrong. What decimal represents the number of students that said bad manners? So I'm going to come up here. You have 49 students out of 100. Either long divide to get the decimal, or if you read this, this is 49 hundredths. 49 hundredths, which is 0.49. What percent of students said that something else was there? So other. So you have 3 out of 100, and you need that percent, which is going to be 3%. Turn the page, we're going to talk about one more thing. Scroll down to the bottom to number 5. So if you have a circle graph like this, let's say this is out of 200 students. I'm sorry, scroll back up to the top. Let's look at this circle graph. So this talks about favorite sports. Okay, if we look at how many students were surveyed, we would add up all these numbers, 9, 7, 6, and 3, to get 25 students surveyed. If these were in percents, so for example, baseball covers about 25%. My goal is not to confuse you here because I'm trying to do a different example based on the one that we have here. It's just a friendly reminder on how to get the amount of students. We talked about this last time. So if this is 25%, the way that you get the amount of people, so let's say this graph was out of 200 students. This is again a different example. I'm just borrowing this circle graph. In order to figure out what 25% of 200 students are, I would have to say 200 times the decimal version of the percent, so 0.25. That would give you what the percentage was, or how many students there were of the 200. So you would have 50 students. So 25% of 200 would be 50. Okay. Ask your teacher if you have any questions.